and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 407.
Woo.
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hi, Justin. It's so
Hi.
amazing that you managed to do that the first time, every single time. For
I'm good at
407
saying these
episodes.
words.
I know.
I'm
it's
very
amazing.
good.
You've become an expert. You've had 407 times to do it. It's you're really a professional, and I'd just like to commend your amazing ability.
I was listening to an old show before, back when we were doing cold opens still.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Remember cold opens?
No.
Man, you know what? Really?
I remember us doing them on the previous show. I don't remember us doing them on this show.
We did cold opens on this show for like 20 or 30 episodes at least. And then, I think we quit doing them around the time we started doing the Patreon because it was like, well, the pre-show stuff is now going to be for patrons. And then so the cold opens got cut. Also, it was like, well, we should probably start the show after the theme instead of
Right.
opening up on whatever dumb joke we could whip up. Anyway, housekeeping.
Yes, sir.
I do want to remind anyone that likes tabletop role-playing games that we have a tabletop role-playing game in the Retro Warriors Discord server. We're playing Old School Essentials, and the next session is May 21st at 1:30 p.m. Central. So if anyone is interested, I think that table might actually end up being full, but if anyone is interested in playing role-playing games with not you, but me, then you should come do that because we've been having a real good time. We've had 2 sessions so far, and it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
It's been a good time. Only one person has died in the game, and so, it's good. Also, we're still doing catch up on Talking Wizards because of the irregular nature of the show in more ways than one. We ended up with another backlog, so it's going to be like 4 episodes of Talking Wizards this month. So just enjoy that, I guess. Like I told Pablo the other night, I was like, hey, 125 is up, and he's like, all right, well, I just edited the last one. And I looked and I was like, well, that's 123. We're like 2 episodes behind still.
Nice.
So it'll be rolling out eventually. Right now, the episode where I went to that convention just released. So that's how behind we are. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
My week. Saturn, you gave me a big pile of Raspberry Pis.
I did give you a big pile of Raspberry Pis. Yes.
From your work.
How many of them was there?
I think it's 10.
Yeah, something like that.
5 16-gig SD cards, 5 or 6 official Raspberry Pi power supplies, 4 Pi camera modules, and a TFT touchscreen.
And also, they were all in little cases.
And they were all in the little official Pi cases.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I need to come up with things to do for these. They can't just sit in a drawer and exist when I need them. I have to use all of my resources as soon as they're made available to me.
Right.
And so I went through quite a lengthy process of setting up a RetroPie connected via composite to my little 13-inch CRT that I keep floating around the house.
Nice.
And it is great. It's so great. It's funny. Like I get it all set up, and there, what I ended up finding was someone had made first I made my own. Like I did all the configs, I built it all to work properly and output 240p and blah, 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 blah. Right. And then I realized someone had a pre-made Pi CRT image that I can just steal and then customize to my liking.
Nice.
And so I did that, and it's been a real good time. I got Kodi set up on it, so now I can stream my old like anime OVAs to this little tiny CRT.
All right. They live in the late 90s entirely.
Basically, yeah. And I needed a controller to keep hooked up to it, so I've got the Nintendo Switch Super Nintendo controller hooked up to it.
Nice.
And that thing works great for it. It's just been a solid little Bluetooth controller.
Nice.
On a solid little system. And I was setting it up, and I was like, man, it kind of makes me miss my PVM a little bit. And then in my head, I was thinking about, like, I could go down that rabbit hole of, like, getting RGB out from my PVM and then blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, no, I think I just need to have composite on this little shitty CRT. Like, I think that's what's safe for me.
Yeah.
Is doing that. And it's been really cool. I got it all set up, and my daughter immediately hijacked it to watch cartoons on.
Nice.
So my wife came in the living room, and we have a 13-inch CRT set on the coffee table in front of our 65-inch 4K television.
Right.
And my daughter and I are like sitting in the floor, huddled around this 13-inch TV.
Watching cartoons.
Yeah. My wife's like, why don't you watch them on the big TV. And we're like, it's not the same.
I'm glad you've been able to pass on that to your daughter.
Yeah. So I ended up mounting it all to the back of the TV, so it's its own little kind of contained unit.
Right. Yeah, I saw a picture of that.
Yeah, and it's just been real cool. I also made the mistake of trying to emulate an N64 game on it.
Yeah.
And I say mistake because most of the N64 heavy hitters emulate just fine on the Raspberry Pi. And I was like, I want to play Mega Man Legends. Well, Mega Man 64, as it's known on the 64. And it didn't work right. And so then I'm like, well, this is my life now, is figuring out how to make Mega Man Legends work right.
Naturally, yes.
And
you just went for the PS1 version and it worked fine and you went on with your day, right?
So I spent like half a day and really a whole day, really a day and a night, fussing around with Mega Man Legends and N64 emulation, learning a lot about N64 emulation and stuff, along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I did finally just go, why don't I just play the PS1 version of the game that not only emulates great, but is also a much better version of the game.
Yeah.
And so then I went and did that, but not until I wasted half of a day doing the other thing.
Good. I'm glad that. And what did you learn in the process?
I learned a lot about the core options available on N64 emulation, and that sometimes I just need to fucking play games instead of fucking around with stuff.
Did you really learn that?
No, learn is a strong word.
Yeah, let's
I chastised myself for not doing that, but will continue to do it.
Right, yeah, naturally. We're all going to keep doing that.
Also, I've been playing a game called Archmage Ascension. No, Archmage Rises. Archmage Rises.
Is it Archmage or Archmage?
I would call it either.
Because I always said Archmage, because there was an enemy in one of the old Dragon Quest games that was called that. And I always referred to it as an Archmage.
My natural inclination is to say Archmage.
Oh.
But it is it's one of those weird games. It's like a procedurally generated first person dungeon crawlery browser game in super early access. Someone in the Discord picked it up for me. It was Nick, who's playing in our OSE game.
Very nice.
It's weird. It's real broken right now because it's like day 2 early access, but it's very weird. And it's if you like weird little indie games, I don't know. I don't even want to recommend it because it's still barely functional. But there's something compelling about it. It's really super casual. Everything's turn-based. All the combat is turn-based on a little grid, and you just play a wizard who's just constantly gaining new ultra-powerful spells that you're just blowing things up with.
Nice.
But it's been an experience.
Yeah, see, I always called it Archmage because it seemed like Archfiend.
Yeah, it's weird. I would say Archfiend.
Yeah.
But then my inclination is to say Archmage.
Weird.
Huh.
I'm not going to say which one is correct. It could be both for all I know. I'm not a wordologist.
You never finished your degree from the DeVry Institute in wordology?
No, I only have an associate's.
You didn't make it to the end of the program. Anyway, mostly spent a lot of hours setting up that Pi CRT, and then now it's all perfectly set up for the day that I decide I want to sit and play. I did play Mega Man X for like an hour.
Yeah.
But all I did was play the first fight with Vile, but with invincibility turned on to see if you could actually kill him given enough time.
And the answer is no, correct?
No, you cannot. No. I put in probably 45 minutes fighting Vile, and then I was like, I don't think it's going to work. Yeah. I need to go to bed now. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Saturn, what have you been doing?
I finished Trails to Azure. And it's still good. It's still just it may be my favorite game story-wise in the series. And then I got to the very end, and I was looking through the trophy list to figure out which trophies I missed on my first playthrough. And there's a trophy that you can get for opening every single treasure chest in the game. And I was one chest away. One chest.
Oh no!
And I have no idea where it is. So I just get to play the game again.
Or you can just go play the next game and just pretend that that didn't happen.
Well, I still have to get the achievement for playing the New Game Plus stuff too. So,
or you could not and go.
See, the thing is, the game's only going to be like 15 hours long when I fast forward through everything.
That's still 15 hours, man. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a long time.
Now, I did notice that this time when I played through it, because the previous time when I played through it, I was like, this is the best story that they've done yet. It's got a lot of twists. There's a lot of character evolution in there. A lot of surprises. And this time, as I was playing through it, I realized I kind of sympathize with the villains more at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's usually where I end up in most stories is without sympathize with the villains.
Right, without spoiling the story or the twists, ultimately the villain's motivation is that they are upset at the current balance of the world, and there's these two superpowers in the world. They've basically just been forcing all the citizens of other nations to just do whatever they tell them to do and just put up with their shit. And the villains have decided that they are going to create a godlike being to allow them to say no to that and allow everyone to live in peace the way they want to. And our heroes are like, we won't let you do that. And this time as I was playing, I was like, hey, maybe you should.
I was about to ask, are you sure the villains are the villains of the story? Like, does it tell you to think that? Because I would not have assumed that.
So the whole point is that they are, to make their godlike being that will let them do this, they have taken an innocent girl and turned her into it. And that's this child that you're trying to save. And your heroes are all like, we won't let you do that to that girl. She doesn't deserve this. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, but think about all the other people.
I was about to say, how many lives is this procedure going to save? Because it, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but,
I mean, they did kill some people in the process, but it was all like soldiers from that enemy army that's trying to kill everybody.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is my first introduction to this story, but right. I don't care for the good guys and would be upset playing the game as the good guys.
Yeah, and like as I came to this realization as I got to the end, I was like, I think we fucked up. I think maybe we
are we the baddies?
We should have just let them get away with this one. Like, I get that they teamed up with the series, like series-wide bad guys that pop up constantly throughout the series, but those guys didn't get what they wanted out of this. So maybe this one's okay. But no, they saved the day, and at the end they're like, so maybe things are going to go back to how they were, and maybe things aren't perfect this way, but at least we're fighting for it our way. I'm like, yeah, but you're failing to get anywhere.
Yeah, it sounds, man.
And then the prologue, or not the prologue, the post game is like, and then after we took down the bad guys, that enemy army came in and subjugated everyone. I'm like, yeah, it seems like you did the wrong thing here.
It sounds like the good guys were fighting on the side of fascism. A little bit.
They're fighting on the side of dumb, Justin. And they succeeded. Other than that, I've been playing more of the Vampire Survivors DLC.
Yes, I've still barely touched the new DLC.
I am enjoying it. I am trying to go as slowly as I possibly can through it. Because the last DLC and updates, I rushed through them all in one day. And now I'm 2 weeks into this one, and I've been unlocking one thing every day, allowing myself one run each day, and it's so good. There's so many neat new things in there. I can't believe that a game that is this cheap continues to deliver so much. It's just so great.
It's one of those games that I'll never forget the first time I played it, where I was like, this is kind of some janky shit, but there's something weirdly compelling about it. And that's kind of what defines Vampire Survivors is. This is kind of some janky shit, but there's something compelling about it.
We were talking in the Discord today about how Konami had licensed Castlevania to Dead Cells for that DLC. They really need to do so for Vampire Survivors. They need to just 100%. License Castlevania to Vampire Survivors and let the Vampire Survivors guys do it right.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do the news. Capcom and Niantic announced Monster Hunter Now.
For people who don't know Niantic,
it's a shitty mobile game.
They are the Pokemon Go people.
And didn't they do like that Harry Potter Go thing? Wasn't there a Harry Potter thing?
Maybe.
All right.
I don't know. They also did Pikmin Bloom. And
I remember that one.
Before Pokemon Go that I don't remember the name of anymore. Ingress, maybe? Anyway.
I wouldn't know it if I heard it.
And so I am assuming that this is another one of those games. But with Monster Hunter.
I was talking in the Discord yesterday with someone. I was like, look, we were just talking about the mobile gaming market.
Yeah.
And I was like, even comparing traditional video games to the mobile game market is like comparing the latest Avengers movie to an indie film someone made in their garage.
Right.
Like, they're both movies, but they're not the same kind of movies. And what I mean by that is mobile games are such a gargantuan market.
Yeah.
Compared to traditional video games, even the big ones.
Right. But they have smaller budget.
It's kind of staggering.
Yeah.
That we constantly have to sit and kind of readjust our lens and how we look at things, because we are the weird niche within this market. We're the weirdos still playing games on consoles.
Alternatively, it's a completely different market. You could also think of it as something that is just designed and marketed towards a completely different environment, much like film and television are completely different
It's
things.
just called the same, includes a lot of the same companies, same designers, and
there's a lot of the same companies between
elements.
film and television too.
True. So it's in what my whole point was. I was like, look, this server has like 400 people in it.
Mm-hmm.
We all basically claim to enjoy video games just by virtue of being here. Yeah. How many of us have spent actual dollars on a free-to-play mobile game in the last, year? And the only person that spoke up was a person that was like, I actually write for a website reviewing mobile games, and I have. And I was like, well, and we ended up having an interesting conversation about mobile games, but I was like, you're the only person that has spoken up.
Yeah,
who is spending this money on these free-to-play games? Who is it? Who's doing it?
I have played one free-to-play mobile game in the last 10 years, probably. Yeah. And I gave it no monies. So I can't speak.
I play free-to-play games.
I don't.
But not on mobile. It's just, it's nuts. So all this to say that I don't care about Monster Hunter Now, and I'm sure it will make more money than the entire Monster Hunter franchise has ever combined.
Right.
And it'll do it in a week. So good for Capcom, I guess. LRG and Sunsoft are re-releasing Game Boy Hidden Gem Trip World on modern consoles and Game Boy Color.
Yeah, which is neat because it was not originally on Game Boy Color. It was on the original Game Boy. They are upgrading it into a deluxe version for Game Boy Color and modern consoles. And the modern port will let you switch back and forth between the original version or the colorized version. And I'm excited about this. I had mentioned when we did the Game Boy Hidden Gems episode, this was on my list.
Yeah.
And it is a good game. It is a fun game. It is worth checking out.
Sunsoft has some good stuff that I feel like they don't. Some guys should do at least 2 episodes about Sunsoft of a podcast or something. That would be great.
Yeah.
The Playdate has sold 53,000 units.
And they said this in such a way that it sounded like they were very excited by that.
It sounds very low.
Right. To me, it sounds like a very low number, but I guess I don't know what their scale was.
For a console that their whole thing was like, buy it for all the weird, cool indie games people are going to make. And it's like, not a lot of developers are wanting to make experiences for a maximum market of 53,000 people.
Yeah.
And that's assuming that every single person that bought one plays your game.
Right.
Like, I don't want to shit on their success. If they made money, they made money and good on them. But it kind of flies in the face of the idea of the Playdate, which is this is going to be this fun indie platform that people make fun indie experiences for, like the, Tick 80 or Pico 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it kind of hasn't really worked out that way, has it?
Yeah, if you're looking to make a commercial success, maybe the Playdate shouldn't be your primary platform that you develop for. But if you're looking to make a fun indie project that you don't care if it sells or not, I could see how that would be a market you'd want to play with.
Yeah. Atari has reacquired the rights to the Accolade, Infogrames, and Microprose libraries, as well as the rights to the GT Interactive brand.
I believe it's Infogram.
Infogram. I never know how to fucking say it. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with it.
They said they may re-release Bubsy.
Oh boy. And that wasn't a joke?
Nope.
They meant it.
They said other games too, but Bubsy was one that every news website ran with because it's
of course,
they could
right? It's Bubsy. Yeah.
But no, they basically they're wanting to re-release a bunch of these classic games on modern platforms in some way or another.
Yeah,
which is weird because they just sold these brands not that long ago.
Yeah,
and that's how those modern Bubsy games came to be. Is because somebody bought the rights to all this from Atari, and now Atari has bought it back.
I don't understand.
Me either. I don't know what the fuck they're doing over there.
Sony has raised the prices to PlayStation games published on Steam in multiple countries, including Canada and Japan. Now, keep in mind, these Sony PlayStation games that are on Steam are several years old.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily the newest versions of these games.
Well, I think there's Last of Us Part 1 just came out. That one's new.
Was that one wasn't I mean, what I'm saying is there's a lag between the PC releases and the...
Yeah, usually at least a few months, if not a year or more. And
so it just kind of seems shitty.
Yeah, and they're selling them for more than they sell them on PlayStation to begin with.
Jesus
and now
Christ.
They are raising that price even more. And I heard that in Argentina, especially, the price is pretty exorbitant. Like it jumped up by a ton.
Thanks, Sony, the company known for costing way too much fucking money raising prices.
Right.
Good job. Kirby's Dream Land 2 DX mod released. I love these. I love these weird DX mods that are getting added to these old Game Boy games. Right? I want every Game Boy game to have it.
Seriously.
It's very exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting.
And I love Kirby's Dream Land 2. Anyway, it's just a good game.
And Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance is being released on mobile?
Yeah. Did you ever play Dark Alliance?
Oh, yeah, I played it. It's just a weird game to be releasing on mobile right now.
Well, it's
just... strange.
I
mean, cool, I guess. It's fun. It's a fun, casual dungeon crawler game.
Yeah, I played it on GameCube. It felt like Gauntlet Legends, but
is this
deeper.
Because they remastered? Well, I want to say they don't want to say they remastered it, but they remastered-ish it, and it came out on Steam recently. Is it that version, or is it like...
I don't know, because I didn't look into it because it was on mobile and I didn't care, but...
Yeah.
Maybe.
Interesting.
Did they do Dark Alliance on Steam? I thought they just did the regular Baldur's Gate.
No, Dark Alliance got I'm relatively certain.
Oh, so it did? Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. Yeah, nice. Dark Alliance wanted to, and they wanted $30 for them. And that's how much they charged for the new Dark Alliance that they also came out with. That wasn't fantastic. So yeah, also my phone can already play PlayStation 2 and GameCube games, so just kind of seems like,
I think I paid $15 for it on GameCube, and that was enough for me back then.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our topic at hand. This week we're talking Illusion of Gaia.
Yes.
Which is the true story of history's most durable flute.
Now, I crossed that part out because that's not the actual synopsis.
I kept thinking that the whole time. I was like, what is this fucking flute made out of? This is the second entry in Quintet's Heaven and Earth trilogy, followed by Soul Blazer, it followed Soul Blazer, but it was before Terra Enigma.
Yes.
Release information: this was developed by Quintet, published in Japan by Enix, and in the rest of the world by Nintendo. Came out in Japan as Gaia Gensoki, or the Gaia Fantasy Chronicle. I can see why they changed that. In late 93, North America as Illusion of Gaia in late 94, and in PAL territories as Illusion of Time in early 95.
Yeah.
Now, Illusion of Gaia was a game that I had growing up.
Oh, yeah?
And I could never fucking figure it out.
That's probably because you didn't have the instruction manual.
That is correct. That is correct, Saturn. I did not have the instruction manual.
This is one that until they ran out of them, if you called Nintendo, they would send you the manual for free.
Really?
That's what I am told.
So we had picked the game up used from my video store because for whatever reason, it looked like Zelda.
Yeah. Well, they intentionally made the logo look as much like the Zelda logo for the U.S. release as they could.
Yeah.
To try to trick us into thinking it was Zelda.
Oh, they tricked us, and we picked it up, and we took it home, and I played a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I remember I would play it, and I was just, because I was young.
Yeah.
You know, it came in 1994. I was in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I was pretty young when we picked it up, and I just, it was one of those games where I played it, and I was like, I'm just not old enough. You know, every now and then you have those experiences as a kid where you're like, oh, this is for older kids. Like, I don't get this.
Sorry.
And this is one of those games, and I would pop it in from time to time. And I would just kind of run around, and that was sort of it. I could never figure out where to go or who to talk to or what to do. And I would go do the transformation thing and kill things with the sword, and then be like, I don't know what to do. And so I was excited to play it for the show because I was like, finally, I get to have my vindication. I get to go back and like actually play through Illusion of Gaia and know what to do because I'm an adult now.
Right.
And I don't want to spoiler the rest of the show. But I still have no fucking idea what to do in this game.
Did you look at the manual?
I looked at the manual. It is too vague.
No, it's pretty straightforward.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
My game that I was like, this is for older kids and I should come back to it later was Zork.
Yeah.
That's mine. Anyway, no, we rented this one when it came out, and I had a very similar experience to what you did. I was like, this looks cool. It looks fun, but it's kind of obtuse to figure out exactly what to do next early in the game. Mm-hmm. Not impossible, but it was getting to the point where it was a little frustrating without consulting Nintendo Power or whatever.
Right.
But there was a coupon in Nintendo Power they made the game like $30 or less, brand new, and it came with a T-shirt. So we were like, oh well, we should get it because it comes with a T-shirt.
Oh boy.
And so
just the logo? Is that what the T-shirt was?
I believe so. But they had just sold out of the T-shirt.
No.
So they gave us a little discount on the game because we couldn't get the T-shirt. So we got it for pretty cheap, pretty close to when it came out, and it was as cheap or cheaper than a lot of used games were at the time. So so my mom was like, yeah, okay, we can do this. And then I had the manual, and it has a pretty straightforward walk through the entire game. So that's how I ended up finishing the game.
Straightforward is an interesting way to refer to that piece of shit manual. I don't know if I just have reading comprehension problems. I don't fucking know, man.
Maybe I was just used to the vague, cryptic clues of Nintendo Power of that era, and so it felt straightforward to me.
Tell me about the development of this game before I talk about how I found it.
Okay. So first, I do want to clarify that even though everyone on the internet, including myself, generally refers to these games as a trilogy, there's never been any official statement from either Quintet or NX that explicitly states that this is a trilogy.
Oh.
As far as they are concerned, these are 3 standalone games that happen to have a lot of thematic similarities.
Okay.
That said, a prototype English localization of the game was found recently that does explicitly say Soul Blazer 2 Illusion of Gaia on the title screen. So we can establish we
are pretty certain that at least there's 2 games in this series.
Yes. If they aren't really a trilogy, then they are at least essentially a trilogy. So we can stick with that.
Right.
Anyway, to supplement the team at Quintet that had made Soul Blazer, NX brought in manga artist Moto Hagio and novelist Mariko Ohara. And I looked through what they have done, and I recognize none of it. But they were apparently notable enough that there were like press releases and magazine interviews with them when this was announced because people were excited about it. But their work is apparently very Japan-centric and not things that I have heard of.
Yeah, it looks very artistic.
Yes.
Which and very highbrow.
That's great. I'm glad that they brought in these people, and I'm glad that it garnered some extra attention for the game. But I don't know who they are, and I can't claim to be a super huge fan of their work, mainly because I don't know what any of it is.
I will say that just looking through casually at their work and how I guess it feels kind of trying to find a nice way to say artsy fartsy. It feels kind of highbrow.
Yeah,
it feels kind of and so it's interesting that I do feel like that is kind of represented in the game.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I clash with the game, because it presents these kind of big ideas.
Yeah.
And then handles them terribly because it sucks.
Yeah, it feels, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself too here.
Right.
It feels like they had these really grand ideas for how they wanted it to look and how they wanted this story to play out, and they were limited by a combination of hardware and localization and just an inability of the programmers to convey these grand ideas.
The biggest thing the programmers couldn't convey was fun.
I actually find some of it pretty fun. Anyway, I enjoy the actual action gameplay, but we'll get to all that. Anyway.
Yeah, we will.
The music was composed by Yasuhiro Kawasaki, who mostly worked on film and TV and commercials and stuff. He didn't do a ton of video games, but he did do Sim Tower, which I love, and we did a whole episode about it. And so I had to point out that the Sim Tower guy did this.
Yep, and I remember we really liked the music in Sim Tower.
I don't know. I did not expect to see that, of all things.
Yeah.
But yeah, NX did at one point plan to localize the game themselves, but Nintendo took over the localization at some point, presumably because this was around the era that NX was winding down their Western office and shutting down their Western operations.
Yeah.
So
he also did the music on Babysitting Mama, which is
another classic.
It's the Wii game that comes with the doll, the actual baby.
Right.
And I think you stick a Wiimote in it.
Did that come out over here, or was that one of those only in Japan things everybody mocked?
I think, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But yeah, he did the sound design on, I guess, the baby. I don't know.
Nice. But yeah, so Nintendo took over the localization, and surprisingly, they didn't censor as much as I feel like they normally would have.
It again, and we're going to talk about it soon. But this game deals with some really big ideas and some very serious ideas,
really heavy stuff.
Things that you do not see video games then, or even a lot of the time now, handling.
Right.
Some very adult subject matter.
Right.
And I don't mean adult like sexual. I mean adult like these are adult problems.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked that it did not get more editing. And more censoring.
But
they just left it in there. I don't. You would have. I don't know.
Without just making it make no sense whatsoever, unless you turned it into a parody game.
Yeah,
and that would be dark.
That would go over poorly.
But no, so they did heavily promote the game in Nintendo Power, which again is how I had learned about it. There were some minor changes made during the game because of that censorship, but a lot of the changes that were made during localization seemed to be things added in that were either half done or not done in the original Japanese version. Notably, the boss of the Sky Garden area looks much more detailed and interesting in the Western version than he does in the original, and matches the character design, the drawn character design, more than the Japanese version. So it feels like the Japanese developers took the localization as an excuse to finish the game, which happened sometimes back then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's talk presentation.
Okay.
Because to the game's credit, it looks very nice.
Yeah.
Your main character, Will, is perpetually windswept for some reason. No one else is.
Yeah, his hair is going everywhere. Yeah.
His clothes too. He'll be like in the beginning of the game, you're sent to you go into a fucking cave.
Yeah.
And he's like billowing in the wind.
And everyone else is just static standing there.
But it's a good looking game.
Yeah.
It looks very kind of square softy.
Yeah, I could see that. I also for some reason some of the bosses in this game always reminded me of some of the boss sprite work in Axelay, of all things.
I could see that. The bosses in particular are a little heavy metal.
Yeah, a little bit.
They're a little intense for sure. I don't
What
love...
bugged me about this art style in this game specifically, it bugged me then and it bugs me now, is that all of the characters other than Will and his forms kind of look like crap. They kind of look like they were designed for a weaker piece of hardware and then ported to the Super NES. And I don't know how they did that.
Yeah.
But it just has always given me that feel. And it doesn't distract me when I'm playing the game itself. But anytime I like stop to look at something, I'm like, yeah, the other characters all still look crap.
Kara in particular looks like shit.
Kinda,
she looks bad.
Yeah. She looks way younger than she's supposed to be, too.
How old is she supposed to be? Because I couldn't figure it out.
Like Will's age.
How old is Will supposed to be?
Like generic anime teenager.
Okay, all right. So, my issue, and this is presentation related, one of my major issues with the game is it's very segmented. There's no real overworld to the game.
I mean, there is, kind of but you have no real control over it.
It's just a menu. It's like the overworld in Final Fantasy Tactics. You're like, you want to go here or here? Okay. And because of that, all of the town areas, or non-dungeon areas, I guess I should call them, are designed the same way the dungeon areas are designed.
Right.
Which is to say they're very closed off and restrictive and corridor-driven.
Yep.
And it makes navigating these areas where all you really can do is go talk to literally every single person back and forth until the story decides to progress itself, which is annoying in its own right. It turns basically these towns into these like social dungeons. And it fucking sucks. Navigating the towns in this game is confusing and shitty.
I went to the social dungeon last night. It was interesting experience, I'll tell you.
And it's so like in a Final Fantasy game to compare, or Chrono Trigger or whatever.
Right.
All the town areas are very open. They're these big open areas that you can sort of run back and forth and easily. You can traverse them very quickly and easily. And so, sometimes you have to go talk to the exact right NPC, but once you know who it is, it's not a huge deal. It's fine. This game, just traversing in and out of buildings and around all of the towns sucks. It sucks. It's frustrating and it's annoying, and I hate it.
I didn't have that big of a problem with that myself. I get what you're saying, but it didn't bother me explicitly while I was playing.
I didn't. The music in this game sounds like super generic Super Nintendo sounds.
I like some of the tracks in this.
I didn't click with them. Like, none of it was bad.
Right.
None of the music was bad.
Yeah.
None of it was as good as Babysitting Mama. But none of it was bad. But it's just something.
How could you possibly compare it to Babysitting Mama, though? He had so much more experience by then.
Finally, my magnum opus. Here, stuff this Wiimote in this baby. What? What are we doing? So, something about it just sounds very generic Super Nintendo. I don't know if it's the specific instruments they utilized or what, but it sounds really generic to me. And it wasn't the tunes, it was the actual instruments at play in this game, which is a weird complaint for me. I normally have almost nothing to say about the sound of a game.
There are games where the sound font bugs me too, so I can get that.
Yeah. So let's talk gameplay.
We kind of already have.
We kind of have already started. This is a semi like isometric action RPG. And it's a very segmented design. It's very much, here is the town. Now here is the dungeon. You have gone to the dungeon now. And now you are back in the town segment.
Yes.
It's very cleanly split.
And it's very linear as well. You're going to go to this area, then this area, then this area. There's no real backtracking. It's just keep on moving on to the next thing.
And being that linear exacerbates the situations where it's like, all right, you need to talk to one person to move on. Because when that happens in other games, you might get annoyed or be like, I don't want to go look it up right now. My phone's across the room or whatever. So you just go outside and grind or do something else or goof off somewhere. In this game, it's like, no, if you don't know who to talk to, now you just have to stand there until you figure it out. Yeah. Like those are your options.
Right.
And it feels very restrictive, and that teams up with the bad town design, for me anyway, to make the whole game feel very like suffocating is the only way I can describe it.
Weird.
The dungeons themselves feel kind of Zelda-y.
Yeah.
I
would say it kind of has a Zelda feel, but each room is much bigger than an average Zelda room.
Yeah, they're huge.
And it feels like, more so than in a regular Zelda game, that you have these narrow paths within these huge rooms that you can walk in.
Yeah.
There's occasionally some wider open spaces, but it feels like there is less of them. And there's also a lot of the combat is more puzzle-based than in a standard Zelda game. There is sometimes some puzzle combat in Zelda, but it feels like, especially once you've gotten your full repertoire of moves, almost every encounter, every room anyway, has an encounter that is somewhat puzzle-based.
Yeah. I really like that there is an incentive for defeat. Really, you want to defeat all the enemies in a room every time.
Right.
Because one, a lot of the times that's how you just move forward. Like you defeat the last enemy and it's like, oh, here's a ladder that pops up. But then also, anytime you clear a screen, or an area, I guess I should say, because they're larger than the screen.
Right.
Anytime you clear an area, you get a stat bump to one of your stats. Yep. And that's extremely needed because every fucking enemy takes 90 million hits. Because you're hitting them with a goddamn flute. Because Will doesn't have a sword.
And I just learned the other day, I was reading this, I haven't tested it, but somebody online was saying that if you skip a room and you didn't unlock some vital thing that you'll need later by clearing out all the enemies, but then you beat the boss just gives you those things that you skipped.
Weird. How weird.
Yeah.
That just smacks of lazy design. They're like, how do we deal with people doing this? Should we design the areas better? And they're like, no, just have the boss spit the shit out.
Should we let them backtrack? No.
All the enemies take huge amounts of hit. Now, this is kind of the big mechanic of Illusion of Gaia is that Will transforms.
Yes.
And you go through these different areas as Will with his flute attacking things. And then you can eventually transform. You go to this kind of like interdimensional space, which is where you save your game, and you can also turn into Freedan, who's a big sword man.
It's Fabio,
and he has more reach, and higher stats,
right.
And later on in the game, you unlock Shadow, who I didn't make it to.
Oh, yeah, Shadow's fun. He's like this weird liquid fire man.
I usually go through great pains to try to finish games for the show, and I feel bad anytime that I don't.
Yeah,
and I feel like I put in the effort. I did Final Fantasy VII in like 4 days for the show. But this game, it was a combination of obtuseness and just being legitimately not fun. I did not have fun with this game.
That's sad.
And it frustrated me. So I didn't make it to Shadow, but Shadow looks cool.
Yeah, he looks cool, and he hits a little stronger than Freedan, but he has like shit range. He can melt into a puddle, which is always... I'm a fan of that ability in every game, by the way.
Yeah.
Any game that wants to let me melt into a puddle, you've already earned a point for me.
Yeah.
And then also later on, he gets these projectiles that look like he's shooting phoenixes out, which is also cool.
So... here's my problem with this design, is that Freedan's only ability is he has a slightly longer arm.
No, he gets his projectiles and stuff later.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I forget that he does get projectiles later.
He gets his charge shots and stuff.
At least for a while, he's just Will with longer arms.
And he's stronger. And can take more hits.
I guess I just don't really understand. I feel like, why not power up Will? Why not give Will a sword? Why not give Will these abilities? Because you're constantly jumping back and forth to shitty Will and then to his more powerful other forms. In a lot of areas, you go through them as Will, and then you switch to one of these other guys, and then you go back through it with them to get the rest of the stuff. And it just feels like them trying to figure out a way to pad the dungeons by making you have to do them 2 or 3 times.
It does frustrate me how many times you have to switch back and forth. Especially when the only reason you have to switch to Will in a dungeon is so that you can slide under something or so that you can use his stupid bullshit ramp move.
So, it's a cool idea, but I just think the transformations don't feel worthwhile enough most of the time to really feel cool. Like, the first time you do it, you're like, oh, badass, but then you're Freedan for like 2 minutes, and then you're like, oh, I don't get to stay that guy? And I'm like, no. Well, can I turn to him for like the beginning of the dungeon and do the whole dungeon? No. You're mostly going to be Will, and sometimes you turn into Swordman.
I feel like after the first couple dungeons, I was mostly free Dan, in dungeons anyway, and would occasionally turn into Will, and then closer to the end of the game, I was basically just free Dan Shadow back and forth, and only Will when I absolutely had to be, or when there was like a 1-foot ramp that no one else could get over. God, did you get to the dumb ramp bullshit?
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought the ramp stuff was actually kind of cool.
I hate it so much.
It's I like. I don't know. I thought it was cool. It was cool, like rocketing myself across huge gaps. That
when
was
it
fun.
works. When it works, it's cool.
True.
But the aiming for it is so fucking particular.
Yeah,
and
like nothing in this game I feel is outright badly designed.
No.
I feel like it all has really cool ideas. Like it's a cool idea to be like, you turn these 3 different guys back and forth to solve these puzzles. Like, oh, that's a neat idea. They got these ramp puzzles. There's puzzles in every room, and it's like, okay, this is all kind of cool sounding. But did you design it well? And they're like, no. And you're like, oh, okay.
I don't know that it's poorly designed. I would say that
I do know that. I do know that it is poorly
designed. I feel like some of the design is a little bland, but I don't think that it's poor.
So, I have problems with the gameplay in this game. And I have problems because there's no break from that exact style of gameplay because, again, even in town, it's the exact same shit.
True, yeah.
And enemies take a huge amount of hits.
Some of them, yeah.
And the bosses take a bajillion hits. Yeah. And the very first boss is brutally difficult. That guy's fucking hard and takes forever to kill.
Yeah.
I turned on a maximum strength cheat after the first couple hours of the game and still had a hard time with it. It's tough. It's a tough game.
Yeah, I do remember dying a lot in this game as a kid.
That's kind of my other issue with it is it's nothing here is really bad. It's some okay ideas and it's an okay game and it's kind of fun to play, but you have to put up with really high difficulty. It feels like the game just takes for fucking ever to get to any kind of a point, to go anywhere, to do anything, even when you know the solution to a puzzle, a lot of times it takes a really long time just to solve it. Just the running back and forth of actually solving an area.
Right.
Takes a long time.
And sometimes the answer is obvious. Like as soon as you show up, you know what the answer is.
You're like, I get it, but I got to do these 2 things, then go change forms, and then come back, and then do these 2 things,
or
then change
worse,
forms.
You have to find where the door is to go change forms.
Yeah. So it's frustrating, like the reason block puzzles in Zelda are so cool is because when you find the block that's supposed to be pushed, you've solved the puzzle. The second you think you know how to solve it, you can solve it and move on. You've done the thinking
Sometimes
part.
You have to like throw a boomerang at a certain angle or whatever, especially in the 3D Zelda games.
True, but it's all pretty quick. Right. It's all like, here's the puzzle, and you're like, all right, once I understand how to solve the puzzle, actually solving it is pretty fast.
Right.
Illusion of Gaia makes the mistake of you figure out how to solve the puzzles real quick.
Right.
But it takes just a long fucking time to get through it. And the game just takes forever to get anywhere or to do anything.
Did you get to the vampires boss?
I was right before then when I finally gave up.
That's the boss that always frustrates me the most. That one is the most bullshit.
Isn't it multiple vampires?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like bullshit. Mm-hmm. I think what it was is, because here's the thing. We were talking in the Discord about doing this because it's also our game club game for the month. Yeah. And I don't remember who it was, but someone in the chat was like, oh, do we have time for that? That game's like 40 hours long. And I was like, Illusion of Gaia? Are you sure? And I look it up and it says like 10 or 12 hours on how long to beat.
Yeah.
And so I show it to him and he's like, well, I remember it being like way longer than that. I never beat it because it was so long. And I'm like, are you sure you think I'm being incredulous here? I'm like, are you sure you're thinking of Legend or Illusion of Gaia? And he's like, yeah, that was it. And he goes, maybe I just didn't know where to go and it took me a long time. And now you know how far I've played. I was before the vampires.
Yeah.
I probably put in a half dozen hours. It's and went nowhere.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. Did you get to the raft?
Oh, God. Let's talk plot. I feel like we've said what we need to say about the gameplay. It's an action RPG.
Yep.
It's not as well designed as even some of the worst Zelda games.
The raft is the worst part of the game.
Acceptable.
I'm going to say that right now. The raft is the worst part of the game. It's the most boring, and it seems to last forever.
So, the plot.
Mm-hmm.
So, Will is basically following in his father's footsteps.
Yeah.
On this voyage to the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, and he and his father had gone there previously, and somehow everyone died except for Will, and he doesn't know what happened or how he survived.
Right. So he's the magical chosen one. He meets Gaia, who's a weird statue that gives him his abilities to turn into Friedan and Shadow and everything else.
Yep.
But it's mostly Will, the chosen one, going to this specified place, and antics ensue along the way.
Yeah.
But the game deals with themes of like slavery, colonialism, very, very heavy shit.
Did you get to the cannibals?
I did not get to the cannibals.
Oh. So there's some cannibals, and they're threatening to eat you. And spoiler for Illusion of Gaia, if you want to play it, you should have skipped past when we said plot anyway. But there's some cannibals that are wanting to eat you and Kara, and her pig sacrifices itself.
Oh no!
On the fire so that you can survive. And all the cannibals are like, oh, pork, this sounds good too. Maybe we don't need to be cannibals.
This is fucking dark as shit. So here's the problem with the game.
Yeah.
It deals with really deep shit.
Yeah.
Like early on, it's like, hey, we're tackling colonialism. And I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to do that game? Are you sure you got the chops? And it turns out the game does not have the chops. Because it was translated by a grade schooler.
So I'm pretty sure that the person who translated it speaks Japanese as a first language and speaks English as second or third language. And I assume that is what happened.
Yeah. I love that this game deals with these themes: cannibalism, slavery, colonialism.
Right.
But it does so with the blandest, most boring script.
Yeah.
It is just a pain in the ass to read. It's like reading sandpaper.
I was going to say that there's no color to the text, but some of the text is actually color coded. But that's the only color you will get to the text.
And all of the characters suck and are annoying. The only cool character is Friedan and Shadow.
Yeah, and they don't speak.
But it's because they don't speak. And early on, you get saddled with Kara, who is a princess from nearby Will's hometown. And Kara is fucking annoying.
Yeah, yeah.
And really bad annoying. Really annoying.
Yeah, and then at the end, you learn that I think she's his sister.
Oh, I see. Because she's the love interest pretty early on. They make it pretty clear because you get stranded in the ocean. And you have to go through a 30-minute raft sequence of Kara, in air quotes, transforming from this spoiled princess girl to this now rough and tumble worldly girl ready to go out on these adventures.
Yeah.
But you don't feel that transformation at all.
You just feel that you have to stab fish until she stops whining.
God, it's annoying. She's annoying. The dialogue is annoying. Will is annoying. It does do this cool thing where it tries to, Will kind of narrates his own story.
Yeah, his inner monologue shows up every now and then.
And that's a cool idea that's executed poorly. You know, it's such a
Maybe
neat
it's executed
idea.
excellently in Japanese. I don't know.
I would be really interested to know what the Japanese script of this game was like, how it was viewed.
I mean, it was written by a novelist. Maybe they knew what they were doing in Japanese, and it's just the localization team that kind of dropped the ball.
And again, that highbrow writing shows through. They deal with some real serious shit in this story. Right. But it's just the dialogue is like, oh no, they did a colonialism. That's not good. Oh wait, well that sucks. And you're like, what is happening?
That said, I was so used to like phoned in localizations in that era because there was a ton of them. There's so many of them. That to me, I was able to kind of read past that and see what they were saying and see what they were doing, and I enjoyed it enough at the time. But looking back, it is clearly a pretty rough translation.
It's very bad. It's very dry. It's very boring.
All of the like a fan retranslation for it.
I looked, and there is fucking nothing for this game. The only ROM hack I can find is someone mapped the run command to a button, and we didn't even talk about the bad controls for Will.
The controls are fine.
You have to double tap to run, which is annoying. I'd rather have a run button. Minor annoyance. But then he does this weird jump attack, and you execute it by pressing the attack button and then pressing forward.
Right, yeah.
Which means you're constantly accidentally jumping into enemies because that's a very normal sequence of buttons to press.
Oh, I intentionally jump into enemies all the time.
But not necessarily when you want to throw yourself into an enemy face first.
Push them back with it because you can kind of stagger them and push them back a little.
It's just everything. It has
Also, the jump attack, the forward jump attack, does way more damage than the regular attack. So I do
it all did the same damage for me because I had max strength. It's very hard. It's very dry. This whole game is just, man, these are a lot of awesome ideas. Like if it came out that this was a prototype for a game, I would be so excited to see the final product. But I don't want to play this prototype anymore, and that's what it feels like to me. It feels like a weird prototype. Have you played
Soul Blazer?
No, I've not.
Oh, it feels like a prototype for this.
Oh, does it? So I guess Terranigma is the one where they finally figure all this shit out, right? Is that
basically it is? Is that what I'm hearing? The culmination is what we're getting at.
I thought Terranigma was a JRPG.
No, it's also an action RPG like this.
I don't know why I thought it was JRPG. Weird. So let's talk reception. Because this game reviewed okay.
Yeah. Generally, a lot of reviews are very positive.
Yeah. And a lot of later reviews are very positive on this as well.
However, Famitsu was not that positive on it.
Oh, what did Famitsu say?
Famitsu gave it a 26 out of 40.
That's pretty low for Famitsu. Normally they give things 50s out of 40.
Famitsu was notorious for never giving perfect scores until...
the amount of 39s they gave out.
And 38 was their like peak score for a long time.
Yeah.
But no, they were a little harsh on this. They said that it didn't compare positively with stuff like Zelda. So they were a little more critical. And then Western publications, you had GamePro gave it a 4.5. Game Informer gave it 8.75 out of 10. GamePro's 4.5 was out of 5, by the way. So it was equivalent of a 9.
Yeah.
So you had some very high reviews. Nintendo Power also praised it very heavily, but Nintendo was very heavily pushing the game as well.
Absolutely. So it's interesting for me to hear that Famitsu didn't like it, and the idea that maybe the Japanese market didn't love this game either. I did. Here's one. I was looking at modern reviews. This one's from 2010. It was Nintendo Life. That says, although not as close to perfection as its two brothers, it's not hard to see why Nintendo themselves published Illusion of Gaia. They gave it an 80%.
Yeah.
I feel like Illusion of Gaia for me is like a I know we never do numbers. I don't know why I'm choosing to do it right now, but it's like a 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I would say it's either a 6 or a 7 out of 10 for me.
Which is 7's too high.
I'm going to say it's either a 6 or a 7 for me. And both of those I would say is still a play for me. It's still, you should try this out. I am not a fan of the 3-point scale. I think that 5 is middle of the road and is the average game. And I hate that every magazine feels that anything below a 7 is garbage that you should throw away. Yeah. I feel like that's wasting too many numbers.
I think it so almost does so many things right. But regardless, let's talk legacy, because it still led to Terranigma.
True. Yeah, there was Terranigma, which did not come out here in the US, but it did come out in Japan and Europe.
Yep.
And then also Grand Stream Saga. And you don't need to know what that is. Do not look into it. Don't.
Was that PS1?
It was PS1. NX was not involved.
Oh, no.
It was published by THQ, I believe.
Oof. God, it sounds so familiar, and I'm not quite sure why.
So it is a game that some people say is the fourth part of this trilogy. It's not. It's not the fourth part of this trilogy, by the way. So Quintet had more or less dissolved after Terranigma, and then a new company was founded called Shade, which was mostly the same people, and they made Grand Stream Saga. I believe Sony put it out in Japan, but THQ put it out over here, and it's just a really mediocre action RPG kind of thing.
You know, the more I think about it, the more you're right. I think 6 is too high for me.
Wow.
Because
I didn't say that.
if 5 is average, 5 is like, it's fine. 5 is your Bubsies of the world.
Oh, Bubsy is not a 5, sir.
Bubsy was fine. The first Bubsy, it was fine.
No, it was not. No. Bubsy
right,
is below average.
Cool Spot's a 5.
All right, fine. Cool Spot.
It's fine. Nobody's offended by it, but you could have a couple hours of fun.
Bubsy has too many unfair deaths.
I gotta call Illusion of Gaia a 4 then.
That's fine. You're allowed to be wrong.
If we're being honest, because it's just not fun. I did not have fun playing it. I put in several hours. I did not enjoy those hours. I started turning on cheats to try to increase my enjoyment, and all it did was increase my frustration with this game.
I feel so bad because when I was doing some additional research for this, I wanted to see what some of the contemporaneous fan reviews were like these days. And so I was just checking some random articles and random YouTube videos just to see what people had to say. And most of the people were pretty similar to us. They were like, it's an okay game. It's aged a little hard.
It's fine.
It's not amazing, but it's worth looking at. The graphics and sound are fine. It's worth checking out as far as Super Nintendo games. Then I found one guy who was like, this is the best game that has ever been made, hands down, period. And he was saying that he had first played it like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And it has since become his favorite game of all time. It is the deepest, most serious story with the most incredible gameplay. And I commend him for making that stand, and I'm happy that he has found a game he enjoys. I can't agree with him.
Right.
It's a bold claim that's very wrong, but I am happy that he has found the game he likes, and I am desperate to find out why.
I would also love to know
what he sees.
And it's still a pretty affordable game. You can get a complete inbox copy on Amazon Prime for $60 right now.
That's more than I would pay for. I would not pay.
Yeah, if it's $60 on Amazon Prime, complete inbox, then it's like $10 on the open market. Right. Would be my guess. Here's a brand new in shrink copy for $1,400.
No, thank you. No.
Looks like Bear Cart's going to run you about $35, which feels high. That feels high to me. I think it's like if you got this for $10. Yeah, I still wouldn't play it. Yeah, I don't like it. I've said I don't like the game.
Ouch.
Yeah, don't think I do.
I would say emulate it. Check it out.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like
worth
it could be
emulating.
worth $20 to $30. I think it's a fun game.
Oof, big
Man,
oof.
You're harsh on this one.
I was sour on this one, and I thought for a long time, I was like, what is it that I'm disliking? Because I started playing it on my Steam Deck.
Yeah.
And then I transferred it over to my Pi CRT. I was like, maybe I need to play it on a CRT with my Super Nintendo controller, get the experience down, and still nada. And I think some of it has to be baggage. Some of it has to be me. I played this a lot when I was a kid. Not a lot, but many hours of it as a kid. And I was like, I just don't get it. One day I'll get it, and I'll go back and I'll play it. And I followed the guide, which was too vague. And then I followed a game fact, which was too specific, because with these kinds of games, if you're following a written FAQ, it reads like baking instructions. Yeah. Well, no, in the dungeon, it's like, go east 2 screens, go south 1 screen, kill the 2 enemies on the left side of this. It's also, because these puzzles are specific, it's also so specific that it kills any fun of actually playing the game and adventuring. Right. But then the game is so poorly translated that you have to have some kind of guide, or you're never going to fucking make it.
I found the instruction manual to be enough.
It was not enough for me. It would be like, do this thing. And I'm like, where is that? I don't know where that is.
You roam around and you find it.
No, I don't find it. I just walk in circles. Yeah, I had a rough time with this one. I think objectively, I think I'm meaner to it than it probably fully deserves. But that was how much fun I had with it.
But at least you'd never have to play the raft scene again.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. I never have to do that again.
Yeah.
Never, ever. And if you wish that you were stuck on a raft with us in the middle of the ocean, then maybe check out our Patreon, because it's kind of like that. You just have to listen to us drone on for hours and hours and hours about things. Mostly breakfast cereals and movies.
Yeah. Today was movies.
Is most of it. Yeah, today was movies on the pre-show. We just did a Talking Wizards, and I don't remember what we talked about. But it was probably something dumb, you know. So go to patreon.com/retrowarriors, and you can check out all of our cool stuff there that we have. And you can also rate and review us, you know, if you want. I don't know. I'm not going to make you, but you can.
He's going to make you.
I'm going to come to your house and make you if you don't. So,
he's going to turn into a big Fabio-looking dude.
And these are all the patrons that I've made rate and review us, starting with Dilf Toast Esquire.
And Nicholas Perfect.
Christopher Britt.
Luke Saracen Clark.
Slick Rick.
Dean Schmidt.
Captain Koloff.
The Coffee Samurai.
Lee Sparkles Ace.
And a winner is me.
Are all the patrons we want to thank for their kind donations to the show. And we love them dearly.
Indeed.
Like family pets.
Justin, you're not allowed to put the patrons down.
I'm very kind to my family pets, Saturn.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
I'll have you know.
Justin, you're not allowed to take our patrons to the vet.
But what if they're sick? What do I do?
Take them to a real doctor.
Vets are real doctors. No, don't be so down on them. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to our show in which I shit all over Illusion of Gaia for like an hour.
Right.
I felt good getting it out.
Uh-huh.
My complaints, I was hoping they would be found wrong, but I feel young Justin is vindicated. He'd probably be like, yeah, fuck that confusing ass game. So, you know, I feel like I get to get that out, and it's a load off. I've unloaded that, and I feel better now.
I hope you enjoyed your load.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and as always, let us cling together.